The biting rain hammered against the cracked windows of the old minivan.
Where do you
Each
think it
drop
goes?
a mocking reminder of Catherine Sullivan's fractured life. The November storm unleashed its fury as if purposely targeting this particular vehicle in the vast, empty parking lot. The amber glow of distant streetlights cast long shadows across her face, highlighting the new lines of worry that had appeared in recent months. She sat in the foreclosure office parking lot, her trembling hands wrapped around a cashier's check for $2,100. Every penny she had left after the divorce, after the layoffs, after the medical bills that came when her youngest, 6-year-old Christopher, needed heart surgery. The paper trembled between her fingers, damp from the condensation of her breath in the cold car. The numbers seemed to blur before her eyes. $2,100, a pitiful sum representing the remains of what had once been a comfortable middle-class life. In the back seat, her 3 children slept fitfully. Christopher clutching his worn teddy bear, his small chest rising and falling with each breath, the scar from his recent surgery still pink and tender beneath his dinosaur pajamas. 8-year-old Emma with her face pressed against the window, her artistic hands curled around a sketchbook filled with increasingly darker drawings as their situation worsened, and 12-year-old Daniel pretending to sleep while secretly watching his mother cry through half-closed eyes, his young shoulders already carrying the invisible weight of responsibility, trying so hard to be the man of the family since his father walked away. Each child carried their fears differently. Christopher with quiet confusion, Emma with creative escapism, Daniel with premature adulthood. In the eerie glow of the parking lot lights, they looked impossibly small, impossibly vulnerable. Kate wasn't supposed to be here. 6 months ago, she'd been a project manager at a tech firm, living in a 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool, planning family vacations to Hawaii. But life had a way of unraveling faster than you could hold the threads together. First came the diagnosis. Christopher needed heart surgery. Then her husband left, draining their accounts and disappearing with his assistant. The company downsized. The house went into foreclosure. And suddenly, Kate Sullivan found herself sleeping in a minivan with 3 children, searching for any shelter she could afford. My dear friends, we all have moments when we feel we can't go on. Where are you listening from tonight? Perhaps you're relaxing in your favorite chair or preparing dinner. Wherever you are, take a moment to reflect on the challenges you've overcome in your own life. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the November downpour. Kate stared at the check in her hands, the culmination of pawned wedding rings, sold furniture, and borrowed money, $2,100. Not even enough for first month's rent and security deposit on the smallest apartment in town. Not enough to restart a life for 4 people. A crack of thunder made Christopher whimper in his sleep. Kate reached back and stroked his hair, whispering reassurances she didn't feel. For weeks, she'd maintained a facade of adventure. Sleeping in the van was camping. Washing in gas station bathrooms was an expedition. Eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner was a picnic. But the children weren't fooled anymore. Daniel had stopped asking when they were going home. Emma had stopped drawing pictures of houses, and Christopher just clutched his bear tighter and asked fewer questions. Kate opened her laptop, the battery warning flashing red. One more search for housing, one more desperate attempt before the laptop died and took her last connection to normality with it. She typed, "cheapest property Mill Field" into the search bar. The results were predictable. Run-down mobile homes starting at $30,000. Empty lots in flood zones. Timeshare scams. She scrolled, eyes burning from exhaustion, when something caught her attention. Abandoned Millfield train station, historic property, as is condition. Starting bid $200. The listing had been posted just hours ago. The foreclosure office was handling the auction for the county. The photos showed a hulking brick building, windows boarded up, weeds growing through the platform, built in 1887, abandoned since 1987 when the railroad redirected its routes. The once grand structure stood as a forgotten sentinel at the edge of town, its Victorian architecture still visible beneath decades of neglect. In its heyday, it had welcomed thousands of travelers, witnessed countless tearful goodbyes and joyful reunions. Now it stood silent, a relic of a bygone era when trains connected America's small towns to the wider world. No utilities, no certificate of occupancy, likely condemned. Kate enlarged the image. 3 stories of weathered red brick, a slate roof partially caved in on one side, large oak doors, and walls, solid, thick walls that could keep out the rain. Space enough for each child to have their own corner, shelter when the world had stopped offering any. The station's clock tower still stood proudly, though its hands had stopped decades ago, frozen at 11:47, as if time itself had abandoned this place along with the last train. Her finger hovered over the phone number. This was madness. She had 3 children. They needed running water, electricity, safety. But they also needed to stop sleeping in a minivan before Child Protective Services inevitably became involved. Before Christopher caught pneumonia from the damp November air. Before Daniel's increasing anger at their situation turned into something worse. Kate dialed before she could talk herself out of it. The real estate agent, a thin man named Peterson who kept checking his watch, couldn't hide his disbelief as he met her the next morning at the station. The fog hung thick around them, the building looming like a ghost ship emerging from mist. Lady, that place has been sitting empty for 45 years. No electricity, no running water, probably full of asbestos. The city's considered demolishing it 3 times, but never had the budget. I've got a nice mobile home listed for $3,500. Peterson paused, key dangling from his fingers. You sure about this? We'll take the station. Kate's jaw set with determination. It wasn't a choice. It was the only option left. After Peterson left, shaking his head and muttering about foolish decisions, Kate stood with her children in the echoing main hall. Dust motes danced in the pale light filtering through holes in the roof. The ticket windows were covered in cobwebs. The old wooden benches where travelers once sat were long gone, probably burned for firewood by transients years ago. Okay, team. Kate clapped her hands, the sound bouncing off the high ceiling. Let's explore our castle. Daniel kicked at a pile of debris, his face a mask of teenage skepticism. This isn't a castle, Mom. This is where people go to die in horror movies. Daniel. Kate's tone carried a warning, but she couldn't blame him. The station was a monument to abandonment. Graffiti covered the lower walls. The windows on the first floor had been bricked over decades ago. The platform where thousands of passengers once waited for their futures now cracked under the weight of neglect. But Emma was already racing across the dusty floor, her voice echoing. It's so big. Can I have the ticket booth for my room? Christopher stayed close to Kate, his small hand gripping her jacket. Is this our new house, Mommy? It's going to be, Kate forced brightness into her voice. We just need to fix it up a little. They spent the morning mapping their new domain. The main floor held what was once a grand passenger waiting area, ticket offices, and the remnants of what might have been a small restaurant or cafe. High ceilings with ornate moldings, now crumbling with water damage. Large windows, most broken, but a few still intact, letting in shafts of light that illuminated swirling dust. The second floor contained administrative offices, their doors hanging open like broken teeth, revealing empty rooms with peeling wallpaper and scattered papers yellowed with age. Filing cabinets stood rusted and abandoned, some tipped over as if in haste. Daniel found a faded railroad timetable from 1982 and folded it carefully into his pocket, their first souvenir of their new home. The third floor was a mystery. The stairs ended at a locked door marked "Railroad Personnel Only." The heavy padlock had rusted shut, seemingly untouched for decades. Daniel pushed against it, but the door didn't budge. As Kate cleared a corner for their first night's sleep, a knock echoed through the cavernous space. The sound reverberated like a heartbeat awakening the sleeping building. Kate froze, her mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. Fearing Peterson had returned with bad news. Or worse, officials to remove her children. She approached the main entrance cautiously, signaling Daniel to hide with the younger ones behind a crumbling wall. Instead, she found an elderly woman with silver hair neatly pinned back, holding a basket covered with a red checkered cloth. Martha Jenkins, 72 years old, with kind eyes that had seen their share of sorrows and laugh lines that spoke of joy, found even in difficult times. She stood straight despite her age, with the dignified posture of someone who had weathered life's storms without being bent by them. A hand-knitted shawl in autumn colors draped her shoulders, and the scent of fresh-baked bread surrounded her like a warm embrace. "I live in the White House across the tracks," she said, her voice warm and steady, with the slight lilt of a Southern accent that had softened over decades. "Saw flashlight beams last night. Been a long time since anyone showed interest in the station." Martha's gaze moved to the children who had peeked out from their hiding spot, taking in their wary faces and worn clothes with a knowing look that held no judgment, only compassion. "Thought you might be hungry. Brought some banana bread and chicken soup. Made the stock myself from an old family recipe." The kindness was so unexpected that Kate felt tears threaten again. She swallowed hard. "Thank you. We're still getting settled." Martha nodded, not requiring explanation. Train station stood empty since '87. People say it's haunted, but it's just lonely, I think. Buildings get lonely without people. That night, as they ate Martha's soup by lamplight, Christopher accidentally kicked a loose brick while playing with a toy car Martha had brought. Kate investigated the dislodged brick and found a small opening behind it. Reaching in, her fingers touched something cold and metallic, a key. Martha's face changed when she saw it. That's the key to the third floor. No one's been up there since Jonathan Wilson disappeared in '83. The key turned smoothly in the ancient padlock the next morning. The door swung open with a groan that echoed through the station like a forgotten ghost finding its voice. Kate led the way, flashlight beam cutting through decades of undisturbed darkness. The third floor was a single, large room. Unlike the rest of the station, this space appeared frozen in time, a desk with an old typewriter, filing cabinet standing at attention, and on the wall, a photograph of a young man in a suit, the words "For Truth" handwritten beneath it. "Jonathan Wilson," Martha breathed, her voice tight. "Worked for the government. They said he committed suicide, jumped off Millfield Bridge. But they never found his body." Kate opened a drawer in the desk and found it empty. The next as well. But the third contained a leather-bound journal, carefully hidden beneath a false bottom. The pages were filled with neat handwriting, diagrams, and what appeared to be government codes. One page caught Kate's attention. "Operation Nightfall. Details of a CIA black operation that had diverted $220 million to illegal arms dealers. Wilson had documented everything before his disappearance in 1983. Martha shook her head slowly. They said he jumped. Religious man like that. Nobody believed it. Secrets have a strange power, don't they, dear listeners? Sometimes we keep secrets to protect ourselves, sometimes to protect others. Have you ever kept an important secret? Reflect on the secrets in your own life as we continue Kate's story. The first week in the train station was challenging. No electricity meant early bedtimes when darkness fell. No running water meant trips to the public park fountain with containers. But slowly, they adapted. Daniel learned how to collect rainwater from the roof. Emma decorated a corner of the station with colorful drawings that brightened the gloomy space. Christopher, still weak from his surgery, nevertheless seemed to brighten in the adventure of it all. Sheriff Frank Thompson, 60 years old with silver-streaked hair and a perpetual furrow between his brows, arrived after receiving reports of trespassers at the station. His skepticism was evident as he surveyed their makeshift home. "Can't imagine this place is fit for living," he said, tapping his nightstick against a crumbling wall. "But I gotta hand it to you, Miss Sullivan. Doing what you can for your kids." Before leaving, he paused. "Might want to check the old generator in the storage shed. Could still work with some tinkering." At night, after the children were asleep, Kate read Wilson's journal by candlelight. The more she read, the more disturbed she became. Wilson had uncovered evidence that $220 million had been diverted from legitimate government programs to fund illegal arms sales. He'd identified 12 high-ranking officials involved in the scheme. And chillingly, he noted 4 colleagues who also knew about the money, all of whom had died in suspicious accidents. The black sedan appeared 3 days later. 3 men in dark suits emerged, led by a stern-faced man who introduced himself as Agent Raymond Brooks from Urban Planning. His smile never reached his eyes as he warned Kate about the dangers of the old building and suggested she consider selling for $50,000, a generous offer for a condemned property. The money tempted Kate, enough for a decent apartment, school supplies, stability. That night, she discussed the offer with Daniel, who surprised her with his vehemence. "Mom, something's not right with those men. I saw them looking around like they were searching for something." Daniel's eyes, so much like his father's, held a wisdom beyond his years. "They didn't care about the building. They kept looking at the stairs to the 3rd floor." The next day, Daniel discovered a listening device hidden in their sleeping area. "I learned about them in science class," he explained, showing Kate the small black disc. "They're listening to us." Martha confirmed their fears. Wilson always said he was being watched. Nobody believed him either. Kate's heart raced as she realized the danger they might be in. But where could they go? The train station was their only home. Brooks returned while Kate took Emma and Christopher to the library with Martha. Daniel, insisting he needed to finish organizing their new home, stayed behind. When Kate returned, she found Brooks searching Wilson's office, a gun in his hand. "You don't know what you're involved in, Sullivan," Brooks hissed. "Give me the journal and documents, then get out. This isn't a game." From his hiding place under the desk, Daniel threw a bag of flour from Martha's care package into Brooks' face, creating a diversion that allowed Kate to grab the gun. Brooks fled at the sound of approaching police sirens. Emma had called from the library when her mother didn't return as scheduled. "You're in danger," Sheriff Thompson admitted after viewing the documents. "But I'm not sure who to trust. I'll increase patrols around the station." His weathered face showed genuine concern. "Whatever you've stumbled into, it goes deep." Kate realized they couldn't run, not with nowhere to go. Their only safety lay in bringing the truth to light. With Martha's help, Kate tracked down Julia Wilson, Jonathan's daughter, now a 45-year-old attorney in a neighboring city. Initially skeptical, Julia was stunned when presented with her father's journal. "I always knew Dad didn't kill himself," she whispered, fingers tracing her father's handwriting. "He would never abandon me like that." Julia revealed her father had shared some information with her before his disappearance, the names of 12 high-ranking officials still in power who'd been involved in Operation Nightfall. Robert Bennett, a 75-year-old former CIA colleague of Wilson's, emerged after Julia contacted him. His hands shook with Parkinson's as he examined the journal, but his mind remained sharp. "I'm too old and too sick to be afraid anymore," he said, his voice thin but resolved. "I knew about Nightfall. I knew Jonathan was telling the truth. And I know who ordered his death. Stanley Brooks, Raymond's father." Meanwhile, word spread through Millfield about the family living in the train station. What began as curiosity transformed into community support. A group of local veterans, many who had served with Sheriff Thompson, volunteered to keep watch over the station after he explained the situation. Neighbors brought food, clothing, and gradually materials to repair the crumbling building. Daniel taught an elderly neighbor about computers. Emma drew portraits for local residents. Christopher became the beloved mascot of their growing community, his resilience inspiring others. Kate reflected on her transformation from perfect tech manager to homeless mother to woman standing against powerful enemies. "I never thought of myself as brave," she confided to Martha. "Before, I worried about career ladders, 5-year plans, retirement accounts. Now I'm living day by day and fighting the CIA." Martha smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to find our true selves, Kate." Kate and Julia discovered evidence that the $220 million had been laundered and invested in the Millfield redevelopment project, explaining why officials had repeatedly attempted to demolish the station despite lack of budget. The corrupt officials needed the station gone to erase evidence and build a new complex. Brooks and a team of agents surrounded the station in a final confrontation. Kate had prepared, her children safely away with Martha, but she remained with Julia, Bennett, and Sheriff Thompson. Brooks threatened, "Give me all documents, or I'll burn this place down with everyone inside." Kate stood her ground. "It's too late, Brooks. We've sent copies to 3 major newspapers, the FBI office in Richmond, and live-streamed all documents online. Killing us would only confirm everything." She pointed to her phone, live-streaming their confrontation to thousands of viewers. FBI vehicles arrived, summoned earlier by Bennett through his old intelligence contacts. Brooks was arrested, the corruption network exposed. The FBI agent in charge thanked Kate. "We've been tracking Nightfall for years but lacked sufficient evidence. You've completed what Wilson started." Dear friends, sometimes life takes us to unexpected places, doesn't it? Kate only wanted a home for her children, but she found a greater mission. Have you ever encountered a situation that seemed like a challenge but became an opportunity? Share your story in the comments. Now, let's see where Kate and her family go from here. 6 months later, the Millfield train station was transformed into the Jonathan Wilson Community Center, funded partly by government reparation money. The center provided services for homeless families, free medical support, inspired by Christopher's experience, and job training. Kate became the executive director, using her project management skills to run the center. The family lived in a renovated apartment on the 2nd floor. Daniel had discovered a passion for computers and cybersecurity. Emma decorated the center with her artwork, and Christopher, healthier now, became the ambassador, welcoming new families. Julia opened a free legal clinic at the center. A small exhibition space was dedicated to Jonathan Wilson and his struggle. Sheriff Thompson, now retired, volunteered as head of security, taking particular pride in mentoring troubled teens who came through the center's doors. "Never thought I'd see this old station come back to life," he often said, his weathered face softening with pride, from hiding secrets to healing hearts. Robert Bennett, despite his advancing Parkinson's, became a regular visitor, conducting weekly sessions where he shared his intelligence expertise with interested community members. "Wilson would have loved this," he told Kate one afternoon, using truth as a foundation for rebuilding lives. The entire town of Millfield had been shaken by the revelations about corruption among their officials. The resulting investigations had exposed how the diverted funds had affected everything from school budgets to infrastructure projects. But rather than destroying community trust, the truth had galvanized the town. People rallied around the community center, seeing it as a symbol of transparency and renewal. A year after the events, Brooks appeared at the center, aged considerably by his time in prison. Now cooperating with prosecutors, he requested to perform community service at the center as part of his plea deal. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," Brooks said, his once confident posture diminished, "but I want to see something good come from all these mistakes." Kate faced a difficult decision: allow the man who had threatened her family a chance at redemption? After discussing it with her family, Martha, Sheriff Thompson, and Bennett, Kate agreed. This center is about fresh starts, about second chances. If we can't apply that to everyone, including former enemies, then we don't really believe in our mission. Kate looked out at the renovated train platform, now illuminated and full of life. She remembered that rainy night sitting in her car with $2,000, feeling hopeless and alone. Sometimes, she thought, what we think is an ending is actually where life truly begins. Martha and Kate sat on a bench overlooking the platform, now transformed into a community garden where Bennett tended to tomato plants with his trembling hands. Sheriff Thompson taught a group of children about safety, and Brooks quietly repaired a broken fence, each person finding their own path to redemption. "You know," Kate said, "I think Jonathan Wilson guided me here somehow." Martha smiled. "Perhaps, Kate. Or perhaps it's just the ordinary miracle of life, how endings always bring new beginnings if we're brave enough to embrace them." My dear friends, this is Claire. Thank you for listening to Kate's story tonight. Sometimes life takes us to unexpected places, and our greatest challenges can lead to unanticipated blessings. If this story touched your heart, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories like this one. Wishing you a peaceful evening.